Welcome back, watch people. Now I've got a fabulous little insight video coming up for you in just a few moments. It's an in-depth and exclusive interview with Chris Clark from Sonin Vintage Watches. Now, for those of you that watch my channel on a regular basis, you'll already be aware of Chris. He was actually at the Brighton Watch Show last year, and Chris is one of my chosen trusted dealers that sponsors this show. Now, before we get into that video with Chris, I just want to pick up on something that I mentioned a few weeks back, and that was that after the cancellation, or the postponement at least, of the 2020 London Watch Show, which has now been moved forward to 2021, I said to you that I would like to put on a free to attend watch seminar, so that it will give people the chance to at least put something in their diary for this year, give them something to look forward to as far as a potential watch gathering is concerned. Now, I'm currently looking at venues to do so. I've looked at one or two, and I'm coming up with some problems already, guys. I'm coming up with problems about numbers. I'm coming up with problems about health and safety. Look, guys, I haven't forgotten. The bottom line is that I'm desperately trying to put on a free, absolutely free. I'll foot the bill. I will pay for everything for you guys to come along and have a day out, meeting fellow watch people, talking watches, and just having a blimming good time, because I think we all deserve it after what happened earlier on this year. But as I said, I've got to warn you, I am running into quite a lot of red tape, and I just don't know if it's going to be possible or even feasible yet. But I'm looking, and I'll keep you informed and up to date as soon as I possibly can. So let's get into this interview with Chris. I haven't seen Chris for quite a long while, naturally, and the first question is that I had for him was, how are you doing, mate? I haven't seen you for ages.
Really well, thanks, mate. Yeah, extremely well. I know COVID's been one of those awful things for so many people, but it's also an opportunity, quite frankly, to do, well, to relax a bit.
Have a bit of a break.
Yeah, we closed up for about 5 weeks because we show watches and everything else. We couldn't do that, and it seemed a good opportunity, frankly, just to pull back and relax a bit. We reopened towards the end of April, I think. And to be honest, we're kind of 75% or so where we used to be. We're struggling to find stock a bit at the moment, but that should ease up, hopefully, in the not too distant future. And it's kind of nice to be back, actually. I think lots of people have changed their mindset about how you work.
Yeah, I was going to speak to you about that. I did a video a couple of weeks back saying that, are perhaps the days of the high street shop, the boutique, are those days perhaps not over, but have people learned that perhaps we don't necessarily need that to be a successful watch seller or dealer, and B, perhaps more importantly from my viewer's viewpoint at least, a successful watch purchaser?
Yeah, I think I went to a high street jeweller last Thursday, and it was empty, and I wandered in, and the guy said, "Have you got an appointment?" And I said, "I haven't, actually." And he said, "Can't see you without an appointment." And I looked around, and there wasn't a soul in the shop. And I kind of understand, it's not his fault, it's what he's been told to do. But even things like, they're all wearing masks, and again, I get that, and I know as of next week it wasn't a pleasant, we all have to shop for lots of reasons, but the main thing is that lovely experience of going somewhere nice, choosing something we love and buying it. And it just felt, and it's early days, but it just felt quite...
It's a bit clinical, isn't it?
It's clinical, it's not comfortable, you can't sit down anywhere in case, of course, you leave a mark, or... So I don't know, I think it will take us a while to get used to that, to be honest.
Before we actually started doing the video, we was having a bite to eat and having a chat, and you mentioned something that really sort of made my ears prick up for a moment when you was talking about, perhaps not always having the biggest amount of stock in, and that it's not always easy to find. But I think that something else that perhaps the COVID situation has taught people, particularly in the watch business, is that big and bold is not always the best. And a lot of smaller dealers like yourself, people have become to appreciate that perhaps, despite the fact that your stock levels might not be so high, what they're looking at is quality rather than quantity. Would you you go along with that, I think, because that's what you was kind of saying to me, wasn't it?
I would, and this is not me talking about me.
Yeah.
But there's something nice, I think. If you're spending 4,000, 15,000, 20,000, with ours and other small dealers.
Yeah.
And small, by the way, we still have 600,000 quid's worth of watches.
It's not exactly small, is it?
But you're relatively speaking to some places, we're tiny.
Yeah.
But if somebody rings SonningVintageWatches.com, you get through to me.
Yeah.
And I bought the watch. I've nursed it through the watchmaker to make sure that everything's right and so on.
Yeah.
So it's me.
Yeah.
And as I say, not just us. Sometimes you ring to buy an expensive product and it might take you 10 minutes to find someone who even knows anything about it.
Yeah.
Let alone if somebody wants if someone wants a wrist shot, I'll get that scheduled in. Well, when will that be? Thursday, Friday, maybe over the weekend. I can just get up, go to the safe, and if needs be, do a FaceTime there and then with it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, if we had 500 watches, I'd be happier.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I'm aware of some of the benefits of being a, frankly, smaller dealer.
But I remember, Chris, because obviously when I was dealing, our paths would cross on a fairly regular basis. We'd see each other in London or wherever.
Yep.
And, as I said it before in our first video, you've always been known as someone that's extremely fussy about what you're buying. But I think the public have become more aware of this in the respect that, look, people say I'm a grey market dealer champion and an authorised dealer basher. It's not the case. What I've always tried to highlight, because I think that authorised dealers are needed in the industry, and there's some great authorised dealers out there, but what I've always tried to highlight from within the business, because I've been there, I know what it's about and I know the people there, just what the public, the watch buying public, have actually been missing out on for a very long time.
Yep.
And I think that this year or last year, when we did the Brighton Watch Show, I think that was a start.
Yep.
It brought a lot of people who had never had any contact with so-called grey market dealers. I just prefer to call them good, solid, honest independents.
Yep.
But I think they've learned, and they've learned quickly.
Yep.
And they're seeing the benefits. They're certainly, I think a lot of them are reaping the benefits now, particularly. Again, I did another video just recently past about the authorised dealerships, Chris, that are asking people to spend 30 grand in their store on jewellery and Breitling and Bremonts before they get the chance to buy a non-date sub. Crazy.
It is, and it's kind of understandable, but it's many times I've been tempted to go to the next level, and I don't know what that is, by the way, whether that's 200 watches and premises. There's all sorts of stages that you go through to become from a smallish business to a medium-sized business. But I know it would lose something, and I go back to what I said earlier on. It's not about me, but people of my dealer size will buy the thing, and it's as important as me, and believe it's true genuinely, that when I buy a watch, it's as important to me as when the person who buys it from me, when they buy it from me.
I totally get that.
Does that make any sense?
Oh, Chris, listen, I totally get that, because it's ironic that you should say that. It's because one of my, if you want to call it a sales pitch, one of my sales pitches when I was dealing was that but it was true. I used to say to my customers, look, I need you to understand this. This money that's invested in this business is my own. And before you buy my watch, it's mine. I bought it with my money, and I don't buy rubbish because I don't want to spend my money on rubbish. Now, I am so pleased. I've got to be honest, I'm so pleased. Dealers like yourself, dealers like Jonathan up at Edinburgh, you guys this year and last year have, in my opinion, your profile was risen massively amongst watch buyers, and not only you guys, also a lot of other good independents out there. I think the public have slowly but surely, the worm is slightly turning in the respect that they're seeing what some of the tricks of the trade are from the authorised dealers, which is their prerogative, but starting to appreciate that the independents can also be of a great service to the watch buying public.
I think they do, and I think they, let's be honest, work harder.
Oh, definitely, you have to work harder.
I don't get up and start work on a Monday morning at 9 and then finish on a Friday at 5 and don't think about it. Basically, it's every hour of every day. It's something will be going on. I like all small businesses, today I've checked my email probably 4 times. And you do the same on a Saturday, the same on a Sunday, and it doesn't really do any harm to drop a little note back saying can't do anything right now, but I'll pick up in the morning. I think as long as you've done that, then the person sending the mail through or leaving a message or a text at least think, all right, it's done.
Yeah.
I can move on to the next thing now. And that's what smaller dealers can do.
Communication, I'll give it. Chris, listen, just recently I've been buying a couple of bits off of eBay, nothing watch related, just personal stuff for the home. 2 companies, pretty much the same sort of products. You know, one company is emailing me every other day telling me when the product's going to arrive, how it's going to arrive, who's going to be bringing it, if they're going to set it up when they get there, etc, etc. The other company I can't get hold of for love nor money. Now, who's going to get my business next time?
Yeah, precisely.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist.
But this is the whole thing. But one of the ironies of business, I think, is you reach a level, and we were talking earlier on, 20, 25 watches a month. I can't do more than that. And on that basis, I don't want to change the way we do things. On the way to see you today, I met up with a couple who wanted to buy a watch with their daughter. Then I delivered one that we'd sold over the weekend, and that's all part of it. So it really is part of it, and I enjoy it. Simple as that. I enjoy that aspect of the business. I think all people in watch business love buying. It's our favourite.
It's our favourite bit, isn't it?
Exciting and all the rest of it.
It's the chase, the search.
And frankly, the photographing's done, and then it's listed, and then it sells. That's another. And it's not just for the money. And believe it or believe it not, I swear it's true. A guy had his watch stolen, a 62, 18 carat oyster, and we happened to have one. And he was absolutely made up. And he just kept looking at it. He took his watch off, an Omega he had on, put this on, and I could see him looking as we were talking.
Bless him.
But then, believe it or not, this pays my mortgage. I don't pretend otherwise.
Of course,
But what a lovely way to make a living.
What a way to earn it. Chris, again, my philosophy was always, I'd tell anyone that would listen that I spend my life selling people their dream. And you can't, it's a hard thing to beat, the satisfaction. Something that I wanted to touch on, I know that you've always worked from an office or from wherever you work from on a daily basis. Would you ever see yourself moving into a store, or do you think that's a thing of the past?
To be honest, I think it is a thing of the past. I could easily say after COVID, but it wasn't really COVID. The trouble with a store is you're relying on people then to get to you. And unless you're really, really rich and you can be right in the middle of London in Regent Street or the middle of Birmingham, in whatever, it's going to be a drag. And people would much rather, in my humble opinion, see me, and I'll meet them and we'll do stuff. And it's the overheads of a store. I would hate to start Monday morning and think I've got to make 5,000-6,000 quid this week just to stand still. And I think that would put an unrealistic pressure on me.
It does, I think it does.
Of course, you've got experience of it. And
of course,
you know, 2 bad weeks, you're thinking, hey, I've just blown 10 grand, I've made 2.
Catch up.
And you're running like mad. Whereas, you know, if your overheads are so limited, I mean, I don't know what our overheads are a month, 3,500, 4,000 a month probably, which is still quite a lot actually, in one way.
It's not insignificant, is it?
But nevertheless, it's peanuts
not
to
as
what
bad
it would
as
be.
Could be. So no Sonin vintage watches necessarily in the high street soon, but
I would love to do it one day though, by the way, for what it's worth.
Just for the fun of it.
But partly that, I also spent, and it's funny, our accounts are just done, and we've got a section of assets that aren't for sale, but it's basically historical stuff. I've bought mainly Rolex, and some of it goes back to the 20s and 30s. Really rare brochures, really rare Prince brochures, for example, where you kind of fold it out and there's some of the early boxes and the pressure testers. And the idea was to create a boutique that was basically a 1950s Rolex shop, or jewelers, not just Rolex. And I loved that idea where you walked in and it was like walking into the past. And I don't mean, by the way, people wearing stovepipe hats or whatever, it'd be normal people in there. But it was how a jeweler's would have looked. I've got about 8 Rolex ashtrays. I mean, how glorious is that? Nobody does an ashtray anymore. Why would you? But to have that feel and look, and the sort of velvet boards they used to present your watch to, and I love that idea of taking it back and having a real signature store.
It's funny.
heartbreaking.
Do you know one of my bizarre fantasies is to go back in a time machine and just have an hour walking along Bond Street, saying, you know, the year 1950 or something. You know, I mean, as long as I had enough money to empty the shop windows, you know. But it wouldn't take a lot of today's money, would it, Chris? So, like, for anyone that hasn't seen the first video that we made, or for anyone that's perhaps not familiar with Chris is a real rarity in the business, because are you still hand delivering watches, Chris?
I deliver on the way to you. Yeah, absolutely. It's not trust anymore with couriers. I just think it's a service. I think it's a service. And sorry, I'm going to waffle a bit about it, but
you go on, mate. I love it.
I always have a medium strap with me that matches the strap on the watch in case the guy's got thin wrists. I've got an XL strap in case he's got big wrists. All the tools to adjust the bracelet, to change the buckles, to do the. And I know how it feels when you get stuff, particularly off the internet, and you have to do something with it before you can start enjoying it. And all that kind of works really well for us. And to be frank as well, if someone doesn't like the watch when they see it, I can just take it back. They haven't got to courier it back and mess around with it and so on and so forth. And don't get me wrong, it's not a great day when that happens, but I can't think of an occasion we haven't sold a watch to somebody after that, if it's happened.
Service.
Yeah.
Plain old-fashioned customer service. It's really hard to beat, isn't it? Even though you know, I know not everyone might get it, especially perhaps the millennials, because they haven't necessarily been brought up, bless them, with the customer service levels that perhaps we were brought up with in the 70s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s. But I mean, it just goes to show there's still a place in this world, especially in the watch world, for a bit of plain old-fashioned customer service.
There is, and I think all you do in life is you try and treat people how you want to be treated in day-to-day conversations, but also that's how I'd want to buy. Obviously not a watch because I sell them, but a car or something. I'd like someone to come into my either work or home and go through it, and I wouldn't necessarily want all the details or anything, but I just that lovely thing. And couriers are amazing, and they've frankly kept this country going the last 3 months.
Of course, absolutely. Credit to them.
But even you get a text from certain couriers saying, could you be in between 9 and 5? And all right now it's easy because we're working at home a lot more, but in general day-to-day terms, at least half the shipments I get a card to the door saying we tried to deliver, you weren't in. Or even worse, outside, or in a meter cupboard under the tree. And it's fine when it's... So... that's
not so bad, mate. I mean, I actually had a sofa delivered last week, guys, right? And they sent me a text saying we'll be there Thursday or Friday. I mean, I can't get Mrs. Thorpe to sit indoors for 10 minutes, let alone for 2 days. Chris, I wanted to ask you, and I want your honest opinion. I know the answer because I've already asked you, but I'd love the viewers to know what's the channel done for your business? You know, I know that we spoke about this off camera before, but I'd just like you to inform the viewers of what you think the channel has done for you as a business. So that's important to me that they know.
It's been the best thing we've done in terms of new business, and I would always support you because I like you and I trust you.
Thank you.
And therefore I'd say nice things. But I'd go way above that. You've got a reputation in the market, frankly, of being straight, simple as that, and you don't always appeal to certain sectors,
of course,
because I often look on things a bit like if you want to buy a house. If you're desperate to buy a house, you don't look at the survey with any depth. You kind of just, and a lot of people are like that with purchases like watches. They see it, like it, and don't want to think about possible bad news or whereas you'll tell them. And as all things, medicine sometimes is a bit difficult to swallow. But your medicine is spot on. It's the truth. And if people want to still go ahead and do it against any advice, that's fine. And it's given us a platform, I think. I'm not sure anywhere else we'd get, Paul, to be honest. Again, you don't need the money. And we make no bones. We pay you for your work because you come out all the way here today.
Absolutely.
But you don't need the money. And I know you've been approached by some people and you've said no to, and that's a mark of you, mate. That says all the right things.
It's nice. This is the part of the job, Chris, that I know I've told you this before, that my channel, when I think my viewers are very well educated. I've not got the biggest subscribership in the world. I don't have my videos don't necessarily get the most views in the world, but I think they're quality views, and what shines through, the message that appears to shine through from all of the dealers that sponsor my channel is that when my viewers call them up, they're sensible people.
Yeah.
They're good people, they're sensible people, and you know, I like that, because I think what I've managed to achieve, hopefully, is bringing good, sensible people and put them in front of good, honest, sensible dealers, and I think it's worked for everyone. But looking forward a little bit, Chris, I think, you know, we can help you a little bit more, perhaps, just like we did Jonathan a couple of weeks ago. You know, one of your problems as a very fussy buyer is buying very nice watches. And I think that, like a lot of dealers at the moment, that's something that you could probably do with.
We could. The fairs are closed, auctions are very reduced. I know a couple of auctions have got a reasonable sale this month and next, but they normally have half the stock for the next one in place, and they haven't. And there's going to be that slight glut, quite frankly, of watches coming through. We would love to be able to stock more Oyster perpetual dates, date justs, relatively standard stuff. The same thing with subs as well, and GMTs and all the bits. And I think we could pay more than you'd get in most places.
So Chris, talk to me about prices and trends, etc. What do you think has taken place this year?
It's still early days to be absolutely sure, but you know, 3 or 4 months into a very unique situation. I don't think prices have gone up, but they've certainly hardened, and I think that reflects the difficulty of replacement stock. You know, gone are the days where you can pick up 5 or 6 watches from people, dealers that we know and work with, and therefore you can't replace the stuff that's on the site.
We've not been able to see each other for a
No. And I think whenever there's a difficult time, when the stock market's all over the place, lots of uncertainty, a number of assets tend to harden, which is gold, obviously, stamps, rare wines, whiskies, watches, coins, and people like to invest in something that they actually know is not going to drop in value particularly, might come off a little bit but not a great deal. And if anything, we've probably seen a slight increase in the few watches we've bought.
I was going to say, I think they, for me at least, being on the outside now and looking in, and still being part of a lot of WhatsApp groups, etc. Because before the pandemic, you know, there were some little wobbles going on, you know, especially with the later stuff, the hot models, which we won't necessarily get into, but definitely stabilised. And I think the term that you used, hardened, is also a good term, because let me explain to the viewers perhaps what I think Chris means, and then you can put me right. When you say hardened, I think whereas before, you know, if you was buying from another dealer, there might be another £100 or a couple of £100 to come off the price. Now there's not, because that dealer knows it's going to be harder for him to replace, because A, the watches are just not around, and B, up until recently, we've all been locked up, so we've not really been able to get out to replace that. Would you go along with that?
Absolutely. And even you know, the currency, the pound is yet weaker against the euro and the dollar, and for all major currencies it's weaker, and watches do come from overseas. So just the buy-in cost on the currency fluctuations has hit us quite hard, and I think overseas buyers are getting the same watch for probably 10% less, even though they're paying the same amount of dollars or euros, simply because of the UK pound being so weak. So that's pushed up. We're doing probably 25% overseas stuff now, and it used to be maybe 15, I guess. But I mean, it's all, we're sort of talking after 3 or 4 months, and who knows where the world will be, and hopefully things are going to get an awful lot better over the next couple of months, or some sort of more normal as we would see it, and we can go and buy watches again and be more flexible on watches.
So for the benefit of the video, Chris, and for overseas viewers, because I remember the last time that you came on, a lot of people actually asked me, oh, you know, does Chris sell to us in Australia or us in New Zealand or Canada, the United States? You're happy to do that?
Yeah, very much so. We try and explain the import duties, because it works both ways.
Yeah, of course.
We get a benefit on tax. We don't pay VAT on a watch if it's going outside the EU. And we tend to reflect that pretty much 100% because they're paying a 10% duty to bring it in.
Yeah.
And we do get asked a lot, you know, can you mark it down in price? You just can't, you know, and frankly, why should you? You're just putting yourself at risk. And also the insurance, of course, becomes at risk as well. So, you know, happy to try and help where we can, but I'd rather subsidise the import VAT or duties that they pay rather than trying to be clever and
absolutely. And I think it's always important for anyone, whether they're importing into the UK or exporting out of it. The thing to understand is that the buying public will always get it when things are going well, but if something goes wrong, if the watch gets caught up in customs or, you know, it gets lost and the insurance won't cover it, all of a sudden, I suppose quite understandably, they don't understand it. So you've got to be careful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's, you know, I often get this call and say, well, hang on, I can get your watch for 5-10% less, but it's from America.
Yeah.
And you say, well, okay, you've got 100 quid, probably, or 50 to 100 quid courier cost. UK customs, UK, Switzerland and Australian customs are the hottest customs. And they even will often ask for copies of your PayPal statement showing what you paid if you undermark it or undervalue it rather. So there's a 20% add-on for buying from the US. And I know it's in my interest to say that, but you're not comparing like for like.
The thing is, though, Chris, this is not 1995. This is 2020. Things have changed. You know, they have machines now that X-ray these parcels when they travel through, and they know exactly what's in the box, and they've got experts on board. Because look, you know, I've done a video recently. I don't suppose you'll have had a chance to see it yet, but it's called Dirty Money, and it's all about the watch industry and how they reckon, you know, the IRS in America, the Inland Revenue, they reckon that 30%, up to 30% of money that is spent on luxury watches each year is dirty money. And it's worth billions, the industry's worth billions of pounds. So the authorities across the world have got a handle on this and what goes on. And I've had guys say to me, you know, similar age, oh, you know, I'll just slap it on my wrist and wear it back through customs because, you know, in years gone by, that's what was pretty much done by everyone and nobody thought any worse of it. But times have changed.
They are, and particularly with Brexit, obviously, I think customs, hopefully there'll be a decent deal and it won't matter too much, but I get a feeling that we are going to have to be a lot more red tape, quite frankly, getting through it. And if you start fibbing on that sort of stuff, then it's a slippery slope, to be honest.
Yeah, it's best left well alone, and then do
it is.
Properly,
and don't get me wrong, it's tempting. But this goes back. We talked earlier on about well-funded businesses, and well-funded businesses don't have to have billions of pounds. A well-funded business can basically look after itself, can take care of its stock. Refund if there's a problem. That's a well-funded business, and not being greedy is
absolutely.
It's just the best.
Pay your bills on time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay your suppliers on time.
Yeah,
goes a long way, doesn't it? When
well, it does, and most
people like being paid. Funny enough.
Yes, I know. No, most people buy off us. You know, they're just decent people, and you know they pay their taxes, they do their thing. And they've all done fairly well in life, otherwise I guess they wouldn't be on the phone spending money on watches.
Yeah.
But if I was buying, I don't know, you know, I even get a bit frustrated sometimes when I buy something relatively small from a shop that's not a big branded group, and they don't give you a receipt. And a bit of me thinks, well, why is that then? Why haven't you put it up on the till? All right, Daddy Mars bar or something, but nevertheless. And I just think, particularly it's shown this last 3 months, the value of an economy that can actually pay for itself. And the guy, by the way, that doesn't pay his taxes, expects an ambulance outside his door if he has a heart attack, he expects a hospital, you've got to pay all this sort of stuff. And that's so important.
There are times when we're all
Sorry, we digressed a bit.
No, but listen, Chris, I think it's good to hear, you know, that was my philosophy. You know, if ever we needed reminding that actually we're all in this together, we've just had it.
Totally.
And I think a lot of people's attitudes have also changed, because another thing that I love to do on my channel, guys, as you know, if you watch regularly enough, is I try and encourage people, particularly if they're of a certain age, particularly if they're of
Young.
a certain age, to enjoy their life to the full without putting anyone else at risk, obviously, or their family's well-being, but just get out there and enjoy it, because it ain't no practice run, is it? Look, Chris, gonna start to wind it down, but I've got a question for you that you might smile at a little bit. I'm going to ask you something. When I was in business, I used to start building up to the Christmas period around September.
Right.
All my buying for Christmas was done, you know, August, September, and I'd want to be building up my huge stock levels for the Christmas rush, which was like November and you know, the first 2 weeks of December. I always used to find the last 2 weeks of December were actually a little bit quiet. January was busy. When do you start? Or do you have a shopping pattern for that time of year?
I'm trying to think of an answer that would sound really credible and good rather than the honest one.
Tell us the truth, be honest.
To be honest, that's not quite true. I tend to pick up a lot of ladies' watches.
Yeah.
Because Christmas, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, it's not a big market for us, but we often find we'll sell a watch to the husband or the boyfriend or whatever, and they want to buy one for their partner, which is lovely. Really, since we started, we were talking earlier about when you've got 20, 30 grand to spend, I actually love not knowing what I'm going to find. And we both know the same sort of people, and there's probably 8 or 9 people that we used to buy from and I buy from. And I have no idea whether it be a 1950s Vacheron or a 2020 GMT. And I find that if I start looking for something, then I'm not as productive, I'm not as good. And Christmas for us, I quite like having Christmas off, to be honest. So we don't see we tend to do really well in January.
January was always a great
And I think it's because people get crap Christmas presents.
Oh mate, exactly.
And then they go and buy something they want.
100%. I always used to say January was always great for selling watches to guys, because you know, they were so fed up with opening up another pair of pants and a pair of socks and a vest that they didn't want. And then as soon as Christmas is over, they go, right boys, I'm off to buy the watch that I want. So
I'm going to get what I want.
I think January is always a good month.
Yeah. So sorry, I'd love to say I'm much better organised and planned and everything else. We are desperately trying to build up an anniversary collection of watches. In other words, mid-60s through to probably mid-90s. So we've got one for every birth year or anniversary and so on. But every time we get even close, we end up selling 10 of them, so it falls back down again. So I kind of look for that. We get asked a lot, can you find me a certain watch? And within reason, we'll keep an eye, but it's not something...
Though, isn't it? It's hard.
Well, it is, and generally the few times we've done it, it's probably worked once or twice, but the other times, I bought one last week, or I changed my mind, or whatever else. So we have a pretty comprehensive stock.
It's a great topic though, Chris, that you bring up, because can you find me a certain watch is one of the most commonly asked questions in the watch business. Now, that gives me the chance to tell our viewers what my answer to that used to be, and was, look, I'm not going to find you that watch, and I'll tell you why I'm not going to try and find you it, because I don't want to go out there with a mission or on a mission to find you a watch and find it for you for the sake of it. The watches that I've got in my window are perfect, and the reason they're perfect is because I've found them and they're in my window. What I can't do is go and find the perfect watch from the perfect year in the perfect condition. What you probably, if you task someone, in my opinion, with finding a specific watch, not a new one obviously, because they're easy, but like if say someone wants a 1985 16013, 16233, whatever, it's not going to be easy to do, is it?
It's
not in the right condition,
and it can kind of take it over a little bit
with the right colour dial.
Absolutely.
You don't want to forsake condition.
No.
For me, condition is everything. You don't want to forsake condition for a demand. Does that make sense?
Total. And we stopped publishing our sold pictures, funny enough, because people said, I want that one.
Yeah.
And I kind of got it, because that's what.
Yeah.
You say, you look on there might be 500 oysters, and there might be 3 of that particular dial style, and probably only 1 of that year. So there's a 1 in 500 chance of me, basically, it's a bit silly, but of finding that exact watch.
It's very hard.
And I try to say to people who want anniversary watches, Rolex dating tables aren't great. We all know there's at least 3 of them, and you can probably be 2 or 3 years either side. And even then, when you get some paperwork with a watch from the 70s, which is not that common, it'll often be 2 or 3 years out off the Rolex dating table. And it might be that it sat in the window for 3 years, but it's more likely...
It just wasn't sold. It was made in 1975. It wasn't sold till 78.
Yep.
So.
I mean, I bought semi bubble backs with, very later 60s type cases on them, because they're obviously sat at Rolex for a few years, and they decided to get rid and keep making that particular model. So the answer to me is, get something, if you want something from 71, get something from the early 70s, maybe even late 60s, that you love. Because if you buy that watch for its year and it's not quite right, you're not going to wear it. You're just not going to enjoy it. You're going to say it's a perfect year. But it's not the watch I really want.
Yeah, it's the perfect watch that's important.
That's the bit to look for from the period.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it works, let's be honest. You find the perfect watch from the perfect year. A guy about 2 weeks ago, so it was his wife. And she said, you got a watch here, and of course it was one of the quarters, I think it was 171. Yeah. And she said, what does that mean? So it means between January and March, it's the first quarter of the year. She said, no, I want one from February. I said, well, there's a reasonable chance it was from February. And she said, well, ideally, February the 15th.
Oh dear.
I said, I'm going to take that away. And I said, let's be honest, the year is hard enough. Yeah. The quarter is pretty close, unless you find... But again, it's easy to laugh. I'd have done that, I think. I look back at the calls I've made when I bought a car or something. The questions I asked, the guy must have, what's this guy on? But you don't think of it that way. And you imagine there's a million oysters from 71 that you can go and buy. And so.
Chris, it's been absolutely wonderful to catch up. We're down here in deepest, darkest Surrey. It's a beautiful... I say a beautiful afternoon. It's a bit cloudy, but if you can hear some banging going on in the background, we're right next to a farm, and I think the farmer's taking care of a few pests by the sound of it. But it's been lovely to see you, Chris.
And you, mate.
I wish you all the best. I'm sure that your success will continue, because I'm not just saying it for the purpose of the video, but you deserve it. I love the way you work. I love the way you deal with my viewers, because a lot of you have contacted me and told me how Chris has dealt with you, and that's what they're here for. Chris, good luck for the rest of the year, and we won't leave it another, 6 or 8 months since our last video?
6 or 8 months. Can I just say, if anyone's very sharp-eyed, I haven't just got one shirt. It just happened by incredible fluke. The other one's in the wash at the moment. So I have got more, but this was the same shirt I wore last time we met in 6 months.
Is that a lockdown haircut?
It's very much a lockdown haircut, but Lara did it for me, so be very careful. Okay. You're on thin ice if you...
Right.
She's good at the sides, it's the top bit goes a bit wrong. And but we are saving 15 quid every 3 weeks now, so...
Not too bad.
Not bad at all, really.
Wonderful. Chris, lovely to see you, mate. You take care.
And you, mate.
And we'll speak again soon.